Education matters.
Past presidents have spoken to school children before, but it was the homework that the Obama administration gave to students ahead of a back-to-school address that sparked a revolt.
That he might be introducing some of his agenda, which, as a conservative parent, I don't agree with.
My rights as a parent are being circumvented so that this president can speak to my children.
The Department of Education had suggested that students be assigned to, quote, write letters to themselves about what they can do to help the president. He, in turn, plans to encourage them to stay in school. But some conservatives say Mr. Obama is pushing propaganda on school children. Jim Greer, the head of Florida's Republican Party, even accused the president of turning to kids to spread his liberal lies.
I think the president has enough to do focusing on the economy and finding jobs for Americans than writing lesson plans out of the Oval Office.
School officials across the country scrambled to address the problem. The Salt Lake City district advised teachers to notify parents if they planned on airing the address in class and allow students to opt out. Similar moves in states like Colorado, Florida, Minnesota, Kentucky, and Virginia.
So will I send my child? I don't know. Right now I would say no. I'll keep him home.
Reacting to the uproar, White House spokesman Robert Gibbs said, I think we've reached a little bit of the silly season when the President of the United States can't tell kids in school to study hard and stay in school. Some people agree, seeing the address as inspiring, not political.
I think any time that someone talks about education and kids staying in school, there's no other motivation for that.
The administration did acknowledge some confusion, so the lesson plan was tweaked. Rather than letters on how they can help the president, students are now being asked to write about their education goals and how they can achieve them. And to further allay fears, the White House plans to release the president's speech on Monday online so that parents can get a chance to read it. Dan Lothian, CNN, the White House.
Of course, it had to come down to this point after cheering on a president who ridiculed academic achievement. The Republican Party, having shed hundreds of thousands of smart, i.e. former Republicans, is now resorting to the purest distillation of its many and harebrained messages. Our third story tonight, the Republican Party's last hope, urging America to just stay home from school, just say no to education. Reading are fundamental. It stems, of course, from Obamophobia, irrational fear of a black man running the country, and his speech on Tuesday addressing America's school children. Naturally, the idea of an American president addressing America's school children is inherently terrifying. So Glenn Beck and other academic elites on the right are now actually telling parents to keep their kids home from school on Tuesday. Skip school, now a mainstream Republican position. We'll show those truant officers. Why is this? Because the Department of Education lesson plan has suspicious questions for kids to ask.
I would not normally have a problem with any president that wants to address school children, wants to encourage them to study hard, to develop, to learn, to have a great education, to inspire them that America is the greatest country and they can be all they can be. But when you read the specifics here, what is the president asking me to do? How can I help the president? Now we're getting into an area where it seems very close to indoctrination, or at least has the potential.
You missed a question, Sean. How about this one? Does this speech make you want to do anything? Because, of course, all good indoctrination first asks you whether or not you want to be indoctrinated. And then there's Michelle Malkin and that blank stare warning that, quote, it's not about the text. He'll actually deliver a very innocuous speech. Wait, what? Oh, I see. Teachers will then urge their kids to write letters to demonize Obamacare. To demonize Obamacare opponents. So where did this insidious idea come from that President Obama should teach America's kids? Perhaps from the article for the cover of Parade magazine last month, What President Obama Can Teach America's Kids by Mr. William O'Reilly. Or maybe from this guy who spoke to America's kids as campaign season began in October 1991, asking kids to write him, telling him what they could do to help him achieve his goals.
The president planned to give on Tuesday was an education speech to students coming back from their summer break, and he wanted to talk about studying hard. We brought it up with David Axelrod. Well, this has created such a firestorm. Here's the New Canaan Public Schools writing a parent letter, and in it they say this: in developing their plans, our principals have considered issues such as developmental appropriateness, curricular relevance, the time at which the speech is being broadcast, and the importance of teachers assuming responsibility for the selection of instructional materials. In elementary schools, the administration and faculty will view the speech, download it, and after discussing it, make decisions regarding how it might be used in the future, including deciding its appropriateness for various grade levels. Parents will be notified if and when the decision to show the speech is made. Tom Brokaw, talk about tortured language. What's going on?
Signs of the apocalypse. I mean, really.
It's stunning to me. I come from a time and a place in America where it would be thrilling to have a president of the United States address your school about the importance of studying and staying in school. And this president, whatever else you think about his political philosophy, is a symbol of working hard, coming from difficult circumstances, and getting to where he is in part because of education. I think it's so ripe for satire, it's unbelievable. The superintendent of the Gettysburg Public School System said today that they have devised a plan for students to be shielded from President Abraham Lincoln, who will be coming to make an address. Look, that is the most tortured thing I can possibly imagine, what we just read there. It sounds like East Germany trying to form some restrictions on people leaving the eastern sector to go into the western sector. I think it's perfectly appropriate for parents to say, I don't want my child to hear that. I would rather keep them out or put them in a different school that day. But this is completely out of control in my judgment. And it's not partisan. I mean, when I was a student or when my children were in school, right, if it had been Dwight Eisenhower or John Kennedy or Lyndon Johnson or Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan or George Bush, the idea of hearing a president of the United States saying, we should study hard, and that's how we advance, and we all need to get in on this, I think is an appropriate message.
Mayor Giuliani, you ran for president. And one of the things that I've noticed in my experience covering a Republican president, George W. Bush, is the lack of respect for the institution of the presidency. Whether it's people saying during Bush's time, hey, he's not my president. Well, no, yes, he is. Does that trouble you?
Yes, it does. And Tom is right. But the difference is, we looked at President Eisenhower, President Reagan, even up to about that point, even President Bush 41 differently. There's a lack of respect for the president. There's a lack of respect for politicians. And David Axelrod said, well, this isn't politics. Everything the president does nowadays is politics, for better or worse. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing people distrust the president's motives or the administration's motives. It's not just about the speech. It's about the lesson plan. I think it's unfortunate. And I think, you know, it almost seems a shame to say, what's the harm in a president speaking?
I wish when I was in fourth
children. I think the president should be given the opportunity.
Governor Pawlenty of Minnesota, Harold, said, look, the only issue with this is it was uninvited. There's a sense that it's being kind of foisted on the schools. Is there any legitimate criticism? There were lesson plans that encouraged the students to write letters saying how they could help the president.
I traveled to Afghanistan in February of 2002. We took with us letters from students in our own congressional districts. I was along with 7 other members of Congress to deliver to students in Afghanistan. We asked them to do it. It was we thought, a clever and smart and interesting way for kids to connect. I wish when I was in 4th grade, the President of the United States, when I was in 4th grade, would have been 1978 or 79. Jimmy Carter was president. I wish in 82, when I was in 7th grade, Reagan would have come and said, study hard, work hard, obey your teachers. If that's bad in America today, we got worse problems than the president going into a school and speaking.
Well, David, you said it's firestorm. And we live in the age of firestorms. Yeah. You know, today, this week, it's the president speaking in school. What it needs is for people to stand up and say, that's flat out stupid, okay? That's flat out stupid what you're talking about. The president of the United States addressing school children in this country to study hard, work hard, because that's the way you advance in today's global economy. And instead of that, we kind of dance around it. You know, it's flat out stupid.